Good morning. My name is Leah Palmer, and I am Creekside's Worship and Arts Intern this semester. If you've been at Creekside for any amount of time, you probably noticed something a little different about what's going on back here this morning. So I'm up here to talk about what this art is and what role it will play in our worship the next 6 weeks. So for this internship that I'm doing, I've, on the worship side, been kind of streamlining and supporting the worship teams, both in an administrative and a creative and skill-based sense. But for the other part of my internship, for the arts side, I've been thinking about what place, what role the arts have in the life of a Christian, and then therefore in the life of the church as a whole. And in exploring that topic, I've come to understand just a couple of things about the role of the arts in the life of a Christian. So God has designed us to be visual, auditory, kinesthetic, creative, emotional, artistic creatures, and we are, by design, just stirred and changed by the creative things that we experience and consume. Whether it be a beautiful piece of music, like we just heard, or a really touching film, a really impactful book, or an intriguing work of art, God uses creative things to deeply affect us. Particularly concerning visual arts, God uses the things that we see to impact us. We just finished a series on engaging with our emotions through the Psalms, and the last sermon that we heard was about awe. And we've been designed to feel awe when we see echoes of heaven and dim reflections of God in the world around us. I've been convicted that we as Christians are unhealthy when we don't attempt to engage our eyes and our ingrained thirst for visual beauty to explore creative works of art that wordlessly teach us about brokenness and God's beauty and eternity. So it's this idea that kind of sparked the creation of this art series that I've titled Caretaker. For the last month or so, I've been working with Creekside's pastors to kind of brainstorm an artwork that would function in tandem with the sermon series that we're about to start, which is focused on Psalm 23. This artwork is intended to offer a visual kind of focal point as we hear preaching and sing songs and meditate on David's kind of richly drawn poem. As Pastor Michael preached the next 6 weeks, this psalm is focused on God's tender and shepherding and fatherly care for us throughout every circumstance. In every stage, in the green pastures, in the valley, in the feast, God is the one who provides for us. So, in the first part of Psalm 23, we see how God provides rest. So this first painting, the painting to my right, your left, it is designed to exude calm and peace. This is a safe place. The pond in the center is clear and still. You can see all the way to the bottom. There's no danger here. And if you look closely, that piece of white fabric draped across the painting is a blanket. And I've draped it in order to look like a blanket rolling back to make way for someone to sleep, to rest. In this work, I've tried to translate the metaphor of green pastures and still waters into the imagery of God, our Father, tucking us into bed, prompting us to be at rest, to be safe, to be at peace in His presence. The middle piece corresponds with verse 4 of Psalm 23, and it represents the dark valleys of the human experience. The top and bottom of the canvases, the extremes, are completely black, but in the midst of this almost suffocating darkness is the moon, illuminating the clouds around it, revealing pinks and purples and blues. This is a picture of the Spirit of God that resides in us, sitting with us in our darkness. And in addition to this in-work light source, there's an external one, the light fixture above it. While God feels our pain and sits with us in the midst of our suffering, He's also kind of outside of us, existing as light that's untouchable beyond the darkness. I was kind of thinking of, if any of y'all like Lord of the Rings, there's a passage, I think in Return of the King, where Sam, Gamgee, and Frodo are in Mordor, and Sam is just sitting in despair. The fumes from Mount Doom are just clouding the sky, but then something kind of parts, and he sees like a star that is still shining, and he's sitting there like, okay, even if Sauron takes over the world, there's still going to be something out there that lasts. There's still light that exists. So that's kind of what I was thinking about as I was creating this. And the last piece behind me, I'm not sure how many of you can see, but it corresponds with verses 5 and 6 of Psalm 23 and is a table set with a variety of foods. And in thinking about those verses this month, I was thinking just how intimate and like caregiving it is for God to say that he prepares a table for us. I wanted to communicate that sense of care and intimacy and abundance through this painting. There are three-dimensional tangible foods placed on the table that's projecting out from this canvas, which indicates that God is the sustainer of our earthly life, emotionally, physically, salvifically. But in addition to that kind of touchable food, there's also a table behind it set with intangible things, food, drinks, flowers. This emphasizes that God is also the sustainer of our future lives. We as Christians have eternal intimacy with God waiting for us at the wedding feast of the Lamb. There's both a now, a tangible, and a not yet to God's sustaining provision for us. So these three works will stay up in the sanctuary, I think until the sermon series is over, then they'll be moved to the fellowship hall. And it's my hope that these paintings will offer a visual translation of the words that we're going to be sitting in for the next 6 weeks, and God will use them in some way to help wordlessly teach and inform us more deeply about his tender and fatherly care for us. So if you have any questions, or if you just want to talk about art and faith or Lord of the Rings, please don't hesitate to talk to me. I'll probably be up here in front of the stage at the end of the service. Thank you.